But the biggest differences we saw and noticed and still do, I would say, are two different things. I would say the intensity of purpose, and you've heard me use that expression before, of your teammates, and the level of soccer IQ, I think, is higher. Even the parents are just more educated, if you will, on the game and the system. Anyone who doesn't have self-doubt is probably on another planet. We all go through that. He's had his moments of self-doubt, but he's also had so much personal growth throughout this process that his confidence outweighs the self-doubt.
Hey guys, this is Neil Crawford, founder of Anytime Soccer Training and also the host of the Inside Scoop. Gloria, we've had wonderful conversations, and your background in youth soccer as a parent and what you guys are doing with the ussoccerparent.com website, it's so extensive. And then your son's experience is so unique that we just could not fit it all into one show. So in this particular show, we've gone from recreational, EDP, MLS Next, all the way to Spain by way of Cuba and Manhattan. You got a book in you. So
I got a book in me, oh boy.
So we've gone through all of that, and now we're in that moment. And I call these inflection points, transition points, from the moment your son was on the MLS Next team in New York to being presented with an opportunity to go to Spain to train with a youth academy. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what did that look like?
Sure.
What would I have heard? What were some of the conversations that led to that ultimate decision? And then we're going to talk about you guys' initial impressions when he got there. So welcome to the Inside Scoop. So for people who have not listened to the previous episodes, introduce yourself really quickly, and then we're going to get started.
Sure. My name is Gloria Stitt, co-founder of ussoccerparent.com, which is a website built off of bringing together resources and information for other parents who probably were in a similar position as us, going, what do we do next? And who do we talk to? So my husband and I started this together, and all from a love and passion of the game because of our son who wanted to be a player.
Okay, so your son spent about 3 months with the MLS Next team, and we're giving the short version because the longer podcast goes through the story.
Yep.
How did this opportunity present itself?
We started researching, next level things for him to pursue. And Europe kept coming up in conversations, and also just talking with my family, because I have a lot of family in Spain. They're like, oh, why don't you send him to Spain? And I'm like, because that's 3,600 miles away. But so we just did a lot of research, and we came across several academies, and then we had to decipher which are legitimate, which are not. Because there's a lot of that, right? There's pay to play with making a lot of promises, and then there's pay to play, which actually delivers. So trying to sort through all of that mess. We did come across one that had everything that we needed, which was not just the academy and the football side and the training, but also would allow him to study and finish high school remotely. So we went through NCSA and the NCAA accredited school process just to see what the options were. And this one academy had both aspects pulled together, which was the perfect storm for us. And that's how we started the journey.
So just an administrative question. What's NCSA?
So NCSA is a service that helps you with recruitment, basically. It's a service, right? So they're mostly college recruiting. NCSA stands for Next College Student Athlete. It's actually a for-profit organization, but It it's a organization made up and consists mainly of coaches and scouts and former college athletes. And what's cool about it is it's like a network. So if you're thinking about taking the college route, NCSA is how you would try to get recruited. So we joined NCSA just so that we had that option available to us. We all know what NCAA is. Um, so NCAA, they accredit, right? So his high school that he was finishing remotely was NCAA accredited, and they had an affiliation, this high school, this remote high school, with this particular academy that our son had uh, been accepted to. So that's kind of a little bit of a zigzag, but that's some of the steps we took. So NCSA was really, so we had an option to pursue college soccer.
Okay, and they made sure that the compliance was there. You got the right academic credits, because a lot of parents don't know this. I did not know this. You can get a high school diploma, but take classes that are not NCAA accredited.
Correct. And they were completely accredited, the school that we used. So, and that was important because, again, you can't lose the educational piece of this, right? Because talk about plan B, you still need to have, so if he decided to pursue the college route, he was going to need to be accredited also, like his learning.
But when would he lose? We're getting into the weeds. And by the way, this is the kind of stuff that you guys are going to break down on your website. So just give us the very short version, because it's going to be on the website and people can reach out to you directly. But when would he have lost his, or did he ever lose? Has he lost his NCAA eligibility as a result of going to the academy?
Not yet. In theory, he could still come back because technically they would consider what he's done a gap year. But he's decided to he was actually in the process of trying to start that route. But again, his opportunities and everything that was been happening in Madrid keeps progressing. So he decided to put that on the side and just go all in now on the European track. But he was still within the window, which is why he had still open. I think the window, I could be wrong, and I'll have to check my own information, is 20, but I have to check.
Okay, so I think there's going to be a window based on that, and it's probably something like if he actually ends up playing quote unquote professional, right, that kind of thing.
Correct.
Academy kids, and this is well known, right, from European countries, come to the U.S. to go to college and play.
A lot.
Yeah. So the details is something that you're going to have to check out the U.S. Soccer Parent website, and it's an article that I will share once it's up with the audience if they want to learn more about the wonky details in that regard. Now let's go back more of I know, right? Let's go back more of from the sort of your experience and of a visceral thing. So you're a mom.
Yeah.
And the idea that your baby could be going all the way across the pond to play soccer. The emotions, and the same thing for your husband as well. What was that? How did you think about that?
It was and is not easy. Thank goodness for FaceTime. So that makes me feel close to him. I actually FaceTime with him 3 times already today. But it was hard. It was hard because we were letting him go, knowing that, look, your family's always your safety net. And while I have family in Spain, it's not the same as having your parents and your sibling. So what made me comfortable was he is culturally very acclimated to Spain. He's grown up there every summer. He has cousins there. He speaks the language 100%. He's completely bilingual. So in that aspect, I had a very deep comfort level. But it was hard. It was hard, and there are days where it's super hard. We became empty nesters way ahead of schedule. Um, so it was emotionally taxing on all of us. So there's definitely that piece of it. What made up for it, even in the moments that he missed home or missed us the most, it's okay. I'm going to training now. Because he was living it constantly, it just kind of helped to offset that a little bit.
So, from the soccer perspective, did you guys get to see him play, train? Mm-hmm. So, what stuck out to you if you had to call back home and describe it to someone who was familiar with the MLS Next Level programs around town? What stood out to you?
I would say, well, first of all,
but let me ask one more administrative to tee it up.
Yeah.
Was he training with his age group so we can picture it? All right, go ahead.
That's a great question about the age group. So one of the biggest differences is it's a unified system. There's not like all these complexities. You have 3 main age groups, right? And then from there, you just keep going and progressing. It's basically what they call Benjamin, which is, pee-wee soccer, little kids soccer. And then you go into Juvenil, which is up until age 19, and 19, 20, you go into senior mode. And senior can be what they call semi-professional and even professional. So there's not much of a distinguish. It just goes by, it just depends on the division and everything else. So the system itself, if you want to call it that, is more unified. So that made it a little bit easier. But the biggest differences we saw and noticed and still do, I would say, are 2 different things. I would say the intensity of purpose, and you've heard me use that expression before, of your teammates, and the level of soccer IQ, I think, is higher. And both of those things caught us almost a little off guard, but in a good way. I don't know if you want me to elaborate on those, but
I do, but I want you to elaborate to say, if you had to, my favorite 2 words is for example. So give me an example of something you remember where you're like, okay, I can see this.
Do you mean as it relates
in terms of the IQ or the intensity of training?
Oh, sure. So I would say, even the parents are just more educated, if you will, on the game and the system. You can pretty much have a conversation with anyone on the sidelines and ask a question, and they'll probably have the answer or know exactly where you need to go to get the answer, which is very interesting to me because it's so culturally ingrained. Again, soccer is not just a sport. It is the sport. It is the biggest sport. It's the biggest sport globally, but also in Europe, it is the leading sport. So from the regional level, like down into the community level, it's very ingrained, right? So I think there's just a different approach, including like you can travel into some smaller towns and they have small stadiums, they have facilities, they have things that I wish I had more of when I was in New York, right? And we're not talking big cities like central Madrid. I'm talking like rural places. They just, even the most basic and smallest of towns most likely have, or the neighboring town have a facility that 5 towns share, but they're nice facilities. So I think there's just this whole, and again, I think I've mentioned this earlier in another interview, the concept of the futbolista. It is literally who you are. That is your persona. That is what makes you who you are as a young athlete there.
So then let me ask you a couple more questions. How many days a week? So this is the blocking and tackling. How many days a week did they train? What would a typical week look like for him? And you can play around with the ages, but you just have to tell us because I know he's 15. He started at 15, but he's 19 now. And then who do they play against in terms of their games?
So, so do you want to know about now or before?
Let's go with when he was 15 because most of the listeners' kids will be in that age, and then we can do a shout out to at 19, but around 15, and because I'm really trying to compare it to what you would be experiencing as a 15-year-old in an MLS Next program.
So, so you want to talk about sorry, so are we going to talk about US or Europe? When he left for
Europe. So we want to know how many days a week do they train? Who did they play against? And what was his typical week like as a 15-year-old over there?
In the academy, in his academy, they were training every day. Now, when I say training every day, there might be on-pitch training, gym sessions, and then they have to work school in between all of that. So they're very regimented with the schedule. Like you wake up at 7 and you do this and you train at this time. And then there's an afternoon session, and each training session has a particular focus on what they're working on. So, and some of the sessions might be video sessions. So sitting down and reviewing videos of past games or of trainings or of professionals. So there's a lot of that goes on as well. So it was, honestly, it was every day. Things change as you progress, and it depends on the teams that you move yourself into. But at the academy level, a lot of them, they're playing against other academies. They play a lot of friendlies. And then as you start to showcase and get federated, which is basically getting licensed, and you get federated into the system, then you can start to look at playing regional teams and getting signed into those, etc.
And did you see any of their games?
So at the academy, we couldn't because it was COVID. So they were closed games. But when he moved to a different academy, we did. We traveled over to see him play, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, so let's talk about the atmosphere and then talk about your impressions of the level of competition, even though it's going to be anecdotal. So what was the atmosphere like?
Oh my gosh. There's such a pride in the local communities to support your local teams and it was, honestly, it's like going almost to a professional game, people with their banners and the drums and the chanting, and you're like sitting there going, what? It, like, as a player, I can only imagine how that feeds into you wanting to play more and play differently.
So it was more people on the sidelines than just the parents.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Even at the younger age, like 15, 16, that kind of thing.
Yeah, if so again, academy level's slightly different, but once you start getting into academies that then get you federated and you start playing against, licensed team members or regional teams or elite academy teams, yeah, people come out in droves. Like, you want to get there early to get a good seat because they're very supportive. Very, very supportive.
Okay, so in wrapping this up, and thank you for this, what was your son's impression of the quality of soccer, the quality of training that he was receiving?
Oh, very high. He was, almost taken aback. He's like, I've had some good coaches, but he says it's just a whole different mindset. And I think it was because he's also experiencing, look, all of these coaches are UEFA licensed. They're probably ex-professional players or semi-pro players. It's not just a side job. This is what they do. So I think, and because there's this holistic approach to creating a futbolista, if you will, there's, the physiotherapy, there's the psychology, athletic psychologists. Most of them have those readily available. for the mental side of the game and the mental attitude of an athlete. The gym sessions it's just very regimented, but at the same time, it's very methodical, very well thought out. So I think that at first caught him a little off guard, like, oh, wait, this is like, don't just go to the gym and do this. It's like you're going to the gym, but you're doing this specific. So yeah. So I think that caught him like, wow.
So then in wrapping it up, did he ever doubt his ability or his compared to the other kids and especially the local kids, or did he feel like, yeah, I got this at all times? Did they ever call you with self-doubt?
I think anyone who doesn't have self-doubt is probably on another planet. We all go through that. He's had his moments of self-doubt, but he's also had so much personal growth throughout this process that his confidence outweighs the self-doubt. But it's very easy to get wrapped up in the self-doubt. But he knows that if at any time he ever wants to stop, he can. This is all him now.
So, Gloria, we're going to wrap it up here. When I first started the Inside Scoop, I interviewed some friends of mine who lived in London. I interviewed them first, husband and wife, about their child and their experiences. And their son happened to be at Luton FC Academy back in the day. Then I brought him on for the next week to interview him about his experience. Maybe in a few months, I'm going to do that with you guys. Interview interview you and your husband about the experience, and then ask your son to join about his experience. And then we'll have fun with it when people listen to both shows to see if there's any disconnect, to see what you guys say are the same, and just get everybody's perspective. Guys, this has been Neil Crawford, the founder of Anytime Soccer Training and also the host of the Inside Scoop. We've traveled to Manhattan. We've traveled to Madrid. We've traveled all over the world to learn about youth soccer. I've sat down with Gloria Stitt, who is the co-founder of the website ussoccerparent.com, which is a website that's dedicated to providing soccer parents with information that will empower them to help their child reach their full potential and fuel their passion for this game. Guys, thanks for joining, and let's get better together.